My son and his wife had been living in our house in Columbus, Ohio, for 10 full years. When the baby was born, my daughter-in-law Lauren suddenly shoved my wife Evelyn and screamed, "Don't touch him. You're filthy." My blood turned to ice. I called my son Nathan into the room and said 3 quiet words that left them both stunned. If you're watching this story, please subscribe to the channel, like button, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. My name is Russell, and I am 71 years old. I never thought I would be telling this story, but sometimes life forces you to face truths you have avoided for years. What happened in our living room that Wednesday morning changed everything I thought I knew about family, respect, and the terrible cost of being too generous. My son Nathan moved back home with his wife Lauren 10 years ago. At the time, it seemed like the right thing to do. They were struggling financially after college, and Evelyn and I had plenty of space in our 4-bedroom house in Columbus. Nathan was our only child, and we wanted to give his marriage the best possible chance. 10 years. That is how long Evelyn and I opened our home, our hearts, and our wallets to a woman who would eventually show us exactly what she thought of our kindness. The morning started like any other. Evelyn was in the kitchen preparing breakfast, humming softly while she arranged fresh flowers in a vase. At 70, my wife still found joy in the little things. Her silver hair caught the morning light as she moved around our kitchen with the same gentle grace that had captured my heart 48 years ago. I was reading the newspaper in my favorite chair when I heard the crying. It was not just any crying, but the sharp, demanding wail of a newborn. Our grandson had arrived 4 days earlier, and the whole house had been walking on eggshells around Lauren's very specific rules about noise, visitors, and routines. "Russell, could you ask Evelyn to keep it down in there?" Lauren's voice carried from the living room, sharp with irritation. "The baby needs his rest." I looked up from my paper. Evelyn was barely making any noise at all, just the soft clink of dishes, but this had become typical. Over the years, Lauren had developed an endless list of things Evelyn needed to do differently in her own home. I heard Evelyn's footsteps approaching the living room, probably to see if she could help with the baby. My wife had been so excited about becoming a grandmother. She had spent weeks preparing, buying tiny clothes, setting up a corner of our bedroom with baby supplies, dreaming about all the ways she would spoil our first grandchild. Then I heard it. The sound that changed everything. A sharp thud followed by Evelyn's surprised gasp and the crash of something hitting the floor. I dropped my newspaper and rushed toward the living room, my heart already racing. What I saw made my blood turn to ice. Evelyn was on the ground, her face flushed with pain and embarrassment. The fresh flowers she had been carrying were scattered across our hardwood floor, water spreading in a dark stain near her knees. She was trying to gather herself, confused and hurt, looking up at Lauren with wide, bewildered eyes. Lauren stood over her, holding our grandson, her face twisted with disgust and fury. "Don't you dare touch him," she screamed at Evelyn, who had not even been reaching for the baby. "You're dirty. Look at this mess you've made. You think I'm going to let filthy hands anywhere near my son, my 70-year-old wife, the woman who had raised Nathan with more love and patience than any child deserved, was sitting on our floor being called dirty in her own home." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the baby stopped crying, as if sensing the weight of what had just happened. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, not from physical pain, but from the crushing humiliation of being treated like a servant who had overstepped her bounds. I watched my wife try to clean up the scattered flowers with shaking hands, her dignity being stripped away piece by piece. Lauren stood there like a queen surveying her kingdom. our grandson in her arms, completely unbothered by the devastation she had just caused. Something broke inside me in that moment. Not just my heart, but something deeper. The realization that I had allowed this woman to turn my home into her personal domain, where my wife of nearly 5 decades was treated like an unwelcome intruder. "Evelyn," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. I reached down to help her up, my hands gentle on her arms. "Let me help you." She looked at me with such sadness, such defeat, that I wanted to scream. This was not the woman I married, full of life and laughter. This was someone who had been slowly crushed under 10 years of constant criticism and control. As I helped Evelyn to her feet, I caught sight of something in Lauren's expression. Satisfaction. She was enjoying this. The power, the control, the way she could humiliate my wife and face no consequences. "Nathan," I called out, my voice cutting through the tension. My son appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable, but not nearly as shocked as he should have been. That is when I realized he had been watching this happen for months, maybe years, and had done nothing to stop it. "Dad, Lauren is just protective of the baby," he started, his voice weak and defensive. "New mothers can be—" "Nathan," I interrupted, my eyes never leaving Lauren's face. "I need to speak with you now." Lauren shifted the baby in her arms, her chin raised defiantly. "Actually, Russell, Nathan and I were just discussing how we think it might be better if Evelyn stayed in the bedroom when the baby is in the main areas of the house, for hygiene reasons. You understand hygiene reasons about my wife in our own home." I looked at my son, waiting for him to say something, anything, to defend the woman who had sacrificed everything for his happiness. Instead, Nathan avoided my eyes and mumbled something about doing what was best for the baby. That is when I knew this was not just about one incident. This was about 10 years of my wife being slowly erased from her own life and me being too blind or too passive to see it happening. I helped Evelyn gather the remaining flowers, my mind racing with memories I had been too comfortable to examine closely. How many times had Lauren suggested that Evelyn do things differently? How many family dinners had Evelyn spent in the kitchen while Lauren held court in our dining room? How many nights had my wife gone to bed early? Not because she was tired, but because she no longer felt welcome in her own living room as Evelyn quietly excused herself to change her clothes. I caught her hand. "Are you hurt?" I asked. She shook her head, but I could see the truth in her eyes. She was hurt, just not in the way I was asking about. That night, lying in a bed next to Evelyn, I made a decision. I had spent 10 years being a generous father and a patient grandfather-to-be. I had overlooked things, made excuses, kept the peace for the sake of family harmony. But watching my wife being pushed around in her own home, seeing the light slowly fade from her eyes over months and years of constant disrespect, I realized that some things matter more than keeping the peace. I was about to discover just how far Lauren's sense of ownership over our home actually went. The next morning, I woke up with purpose for the first time in years. Evelyn was already up, moving quietly around our bedroom, as she had learned to do over the past 10 years. Everything about her movements had become smaller, more careful, designed not to disturb the people living in our house who had somehow become more important than we were. I found Nathan in what used to be my home office, now converted into a makeshift nursery overflow area. He was changing the baby's diaper, looking tired but content. For a moment, watching him with his son, I remembered why I had wanted to help him in the first place. "Nathan, we need to talk," I said, keeping my voice low. He glanced up nervously. Dad, if this is about yesterday. Lauren was just tired. New baby and all. She didn't mean anything by it. I pulled a chair close to him and sat down. Son, your wife pushed your mother to the ground in our own living room. She called her dirty. Does that sound like something we just brush off? Nathan's hand stilled on the baby's clothes. She didn't push her. Dad, Mom just lost her balance. Lauren was protecting the baby from germs. You know how important that is in the first few weeks. The ease with which he dismissed what we both witnessed made my stomach turn. Nathan, I saw it. Your mother was bringing fresh flowers to brighten up the living room. She was not even near the baby. Look, Dad, Nathan said, lifting his son and holding him close. I know Mom means well, but Lauren has very specific ideas about childcare. She has read all the books. She knows what she is doing. I stared at my son. This 36-year-old man who had apparently forgotten that his mother had successfully raised him without any books telling her how dirty she was. And what about our ideas, I asked. This is our house. Nathan. Something flickered across his face. Uncomfortable and quick. Of course it is. But we are living here too. And we need to think about what is best for everyone. What is best for everyone, I repeated slowly. Tell me, son, when was the last time your mother felt comfortable in her own living room? Nathan shifted uncomfortably. What do you mean? When was the last time Evelyn sat in her favorite chair without Lauren commenting on how she was doing something wrong? When was the last time she cooked a meal without being told it was too salty, too bland, or prepared incorrectly? When was the last time your mother spoke at dinner without being interrupted or corrected? The silence stretched between us. Nathan looked down at his son, avoiding my eyes. The baby made small, contented noises, completely unaware that his presence had become a weapon in a war nobody had officially declared. Lauren just has high standards, Nathan finally said. And Mom, well, she is getting older. Sometimes she forgets things or does not do things the way Lauren prefers. The way Lauren prefers, I echoed. In our house. It is not just your house anymore, Dad. It is our family home. There it was. The truth I had been avoiding for 10 years. Somehow, without any discussion or agreement. Our house had stopped being our home and had become their family's permanent kingdom, with Evelyn and me as reluctant subjects. I thought about all the small changes that had happened so gradually I had barely noticed them. How Lauren had rearranged our living room furniture because it flowed better. How she had convinced Nathan to move their bedroom into the master suite on the first floor because climbing stairs was impractical with a baby, leaving Evelyn and me to relocate to the smaller upstairs bedroom. How she had taken over our kitchen completely, declaring that Evelyn's cooking was too heavy and not nutritionally balanced, effectively banishing my wife from the space she had commanded for almost 50 years. Nathan, I said carefully, do you remember when you first moved in here what we agreed on? He looked uncomfortable. You said we could stay until we got back on our feet. And how long did we say that would take? A year? Maybe 3 at the most. It has been 10 years. Son, I know. But things have been complicated. The economy, job changes, and now the baby. Have you been looking for your own place? The question hung in the air. Nathan's face told me everything I needed to know before he spoke. We have been comfortable here, he said finally. And with the baby coming, Lauren thought it made sense to stay where there is help and support. Help and support. I almost laughed. Evelyn had been providing both for 10 years while being treated like hired help who could not do anything right. Does Lauren work? Nathan. Another uncomfortable shift. She is focusing on being a mother right now. That is a full-time job. And I am between opportunities at the moment. But with the baby, we need to be smart about childcare costs. I felt something cold settle in my chest. My son was unemployed. His wife had never worked during their 10 years in our house, and they were now planning to stay indefinitely because leaving would require them to actually support themselves. Nathan, who pays for your groceries? He looked at me like I was asking an inappropriate question. We contribute when we can. Who pays for your car insurance, your phone bill, the utilities that have tripled since you moved in, Dad? We are family. Who bought the crib upstairs, the changing table, the monitor system, the special bottles and formula and diapers? Nathan's face flushed. You and Mom wanted to help with the baby. We did, but we were never asked. Lauren would mention needing something, and Evelyn would quietly go buy it. Your wife never said please or thank you. We just expected it. I watched my son struggle with information he had been avoiding for years. The truth about how his small family was surviving and at whose expense. Where does Lauren think the money comes from, son? When Evelyn buys groceries for 5 people instead of 2, when our electric bill jumps because someone is running space heaters and sound machines all night, when we are suddenly buying organic everything because regular food is not good enough for your wife's standards. Nathan was quiet for a long time, holding his son and avoiding my eyes. I did not realize you felt like we were taking advantage, he said finally. It is not about feeling taken advantage of, Nathan. It is about respect. It is about Evelyn being treated like a guest in her own home. It is about you standing by while your wife pushes your mother around. She does not push her around. Yesterday she literally pushed her to the ground. Nathan winced. That was an accident. No, son. That was the result of 10 years of your wife treating your mother like she does not belong here. Yesterday was just the first time it got physical. I stood up, looking down at my son and grandson. I want you to think about something. Nathan, if someone treated your son the way Lauren treats Evelyn, how would you handle it? Nathan's arms tightened protectively around the baby. I would never let anyone hurt him. Then why are you letting your wife hurt your mother? I left him sitting there with that question. As I walked back toward the kitchen, I could hear Lauren's voice drifting from the living room. She was on the phone with someone, and her tone was completely different from the exhausted new mother act she put on around us. Oh, it is perfect, she was saying, her voice animated and confident. We have the whole place basically to ourselves. The old woman mostly stays upstairs now, and Russell is completely manageable. Nathan does whatever I tell him to do. I stopped walking. She was talking about us, about our home, about my wife. No, we are not planning to move anytime soon. Lauren continued. Why would we free house, free food, built-in babysitting? It is like winning the lottery. Except easier. The person on the other end must have said something because Lauren laughed. A sound I had rarely heard in our house. Trust me, they are not going anywhere. Evelyn is too beaten down to cause trouble, and Russell is too much of a pushover to make demands. By the time they realize what is happening, we will have everything exactly how we want it. I stood frozen in our hallway, listening to my daughter-in-law discuss our family like we were marks in some long-term con game. The casual cruelty in her voice, the complete lack of gratitude or affection, made me realize that what happened yesterday was not an isolated incident or a moment of new mother stress. It was Lauren showing her true face for the first time, confident that there would be no consequences. As I stood there listening to her laugh about how easily she had manipulated our family, I realized that the conversation I just had with Nathan was only the beginning. This was not just about respect or boundaries or even money. This was about a woman who had spent 10 years systematically taking over our home and our lives, and who was now planning to continue that takeover indefinitely. The question was, what was I going to do about it? After overhearing Lauren's phone conversation, I could not shake the feeling that there was more going on than I had realized. Her words kept echoing in my mind. By the time they realize what is happening, we will have everything exactly how we want it. What exactly did she mean by that? I spent the next few days watching more carefully, paying attention to things I had been too trusting to notice before. Evelyn seemed to sense my change in mood, but she did not ask questions. She had learned over the years that asking too many questions around Lauren led to uncomfortable confrontations. It was Friday afternoon when I made the discovery that changed everything. I was looking for our homeowner's insurance documents in my old filing cabinet, which I had moved to the basement when Nathan and Lauren took over my office. As I rifled through folders that had not been touched in months, I found something that made my blood run cold. Mixed in with our personal documents were papers I had never seen before. Official-looking forms with our address on them, but not our names. I pulled out a stack of documents, my hands trembling as I read them. Utility bills, but not in my name or Evelyn's. They were in Lauren Hartwell's name. Not just one bill, but almost 8 months' worth. Electric, gas, water, cable, internet, all transferred to Lauren Hartwell. But that was not the worst part. At the bottom of the stack was a form I recognized but could not immediately believe. A mail forwarding request with the United States Postal Service redirecting all mail for our address to come under Lauren's name first, dated 7 months ago. I sat down hard on an old chair in our basement, staring at the papers in disbelief. Lauren had been systematically putting our home services in her name without telling us, without asking permission. I climbed the stairs with shaking legs and went straight to our mailbox. Sure enough, when I really looked at the mail we had been receiving, I noticed that most of it was addressed to L. Hartwell at our address with our actual mail mixed in almost as an afterthought. How had I missed this? How long had she been intercepting our mail, our bills, our personal correspondence? I walked back into the house and went straight to the kitchen, where Evelyn was quietly preparing lunch. She looked up when I entered, and I could see the question in her eyes. "Evelyn," I said, keeping my voice low, "when was the last time you saw our electric bill?" She frowned, thinking, "Well, you usually handle those, Russell, but now that you mention it, I have not seen any bills lying around in months. I assumed you were paying them online now." "I am not paying them online. I have not seen them either." Evelyn's face went pale. "What do you mean?" I showed her the documents I had found. Watched her face change as she realized what they meant. My strong, patient wife, who had endured 10 years of gradual humiliation, suddenly looked frightened. "Russell, what does this mean? Why would she put the bills in her name?" I did not want to voice what I was thinking, but the implications were becoming clear. "I think she is trying to establish legal residence here. If all the utilities are in her name, if she is receiving all the mail, she can claim this as her primary residence. But it is our house. We have the deed, I know. But if someone wanted to make a legal claim that they were the primary occupants, having all the utilities and mail in their name would be a good start." Evelyn sank into a chair at our kitchen table. "She is trying to take our house." Before I could answer, we heard footsteps. Lauren appeared in the kitchen doorway, the baby in her arms, looking at us with curious eyes. Is everything all right? She asked, her voice sweet and concerned. You both look upset. I held up the stack of papers. Lauren, why are our utility bills in your name for just a second? Her mask slipped. I saw a quick calculation in her eyes, an assessment of how much trouble she was in. Then the innocent expression returned. Oh, those, she said with a light laugh. There was some mix-up with the billing company a few months ago. They kept sending the bills to the wrong address, so I had them transferred to my name temporarily to make sure they got paid on time. I meant to mention it to you. For 8 months, has it been that long? Time flies with the baby coming and everything. I will call them tomorrow and switch it back if you want. I studied her face. She was good at this. I would give her that. The explanation was plausible enough, delivered with just the right amount of casual dismissal. What about the mail forwarding? This time the pause was longer. Mail forwarding. The Postal Service has a forwarding order that sends all mail for this address to you first. Lauren shifted the baby in her arms. Buying time. I honestly do not know what you are talking about. Russell, maybe there was some mistake when I updated my address after we moved in. You know how confusing Postal Service forms can be. 8 years ago I said I would look into it. Did I not? Her voice had an edge now, the sweet tone cracking slightly. I do not understand why you are making such a big deal about this. We are family. We all live here together. It is our house. Lauren. She looked at me with what I can only describe as pity. Of course it is. I never said it was not. But we live here too. Russell, we contribute to the household. It makes sense for the bills to be organized efficiently. Evelyn spoke up for the first time, her voice quiet but steady. How do you contribute to the household? Lauren. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Lauren's eyes narrowed slightly as she looked at my wife. I take care of the baby. I manage the household schedules. I make sure everything runs smoothly by handling practical matters that you and Russell obviously do not have time for anymore. The condescension in her voice was unmistakable now. She was not even trying to hide it. We are not senile. Lauren, I said, we have been managing our household and finances for over 45 years. Of course you have, she said, but her tone suggested the opposite. I am just trying to help, but if you would rather handle everything yourselves, that is fine. Nathan and I can find somewhere else to live. It was a threat disguised as accommodation. She was betting that we would not call her bluff, that the thought of losing access to our grandson would make us back down. But something had changed in me since I found those papers. The realization that she had been systematically working to establish legal claim to our home had awakened something I had kept buried for too long. Actually, I said, my voice calm and steady, I think that might be for the best. Lauren's face went white. Excuse me, I think it is time for you and Nathan to find your own place. You have been here 10 years. That is long enough. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious, Nathan, she called out, her voice sharp with panic. Nathan, get in here. My son appeared within seconds, looking alarmed. What is wrong? Your father is trying to kick us out, Lauren said, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. He is upset about some silly paperwork mix-up, and now he wants to throw us out on the street with a newborn baby. Nathan looked between us, confused and clearly uncomfortable. Dad, what is going on? I handed him the stack of papers. Your wife has been putting our household bills in her name without our knowledge or permission. She has also redirected our mail through the Postal Service. Nathan frowned as he looked through the documents. Lauren, What is this? It is nothing, she said quickly. Just some administrative convenience to make sure bills got paid on time. Your father is making it sound much more sinister than it is. For 8 months, Nathan asked, echoing my earlier question. I told you I meant to mention it. With the pregnancy and everything, it slipped my mind. Nathan looked at the papers more carefully. I could see him starting to understand the implications. This makes it look like you are the primary resident here. That is ridiculous, Lauren snapped. It is just paperwork. Your parents are acting paranoid. But Nathan was not looking at his wife anymore. He was looking at me, and I could see the exact moment when the pieces started falling into place in his mind. All the small changes over the years. All the ways Lauren had gradually taken more control over the house. All the times she had made decisions without consulting Evelyn and me. Lauren, Nathan said slowly, why would you put the utilities in your name without asking? I already explained. No, he interrupted, his voice getting stronger. Why would you really do this for the first time since I had known her? Lauren looked genuinely rattled. The baby started to fuss in her arms, sensing the tension in the room. I was trying to help, she said, but her voice lacked conviction now. By taking over our parents' house, it is not taking over. It is organizing. Someone needed to handle these things properly. Properly, Evelyn spoke up again, her voice stronger now. We have been handling our affairs properly since before you were born. Lauren's mask finally slipped completely. Really, because from where I stand, you two have been letting this place fall apart. Bills getting mixed up. Mail going to the wrong places. Systems that have not been updated in decades. Someone needed to modernize things around here. Someone needed to take over. You mean I said, yes. The word exploded out of her before she could stop it. Yes, someone needed to take control because you two obviously cannot handle it anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the baby had stopped fussing, as if sensing that something important had just been revealed. Nathan stared at his wife with an expression I had never seen before. Not anger exactly, but recognition. The dawning realization that the woman he had married was not who he thought she was. How long have you been planning this? He asked quietly. Planning what I was not planning anything. How long have you been working to take over their house? Lauren's eyes darted between all of us, and I could see her calculating whether she could still talk her way out of this. That is when I knew we were about to discover just how deep this went. The tension in our kitchen was suffocating. Lauren stood there holding our grandson, her face cycling through emotions as she tried to decide which approach would work best. I had seen her do this before during smaller conflicts, but never when the stakes were this high. You are all overreacting, she said finally, settling on indignation. I was trying to help streamline things around here, and now you are acting like I committed some terrible crime. Help streamline things, Nathan repeated, his voice flat. He was still holding the papers, looking at them like they were written in a foreign language. By putting our parents' utilities in your name. Our utilities, Lauren corrected. We live here too. Nathan, we are part of this household. It is not our house. Nathan said quietly. Is it not? Lauren's voice turned sharp. We have been here for 10 years. We contribute to this family. We help maintain this place. At what point does it become our home too when we buy our own? I said firmly. Lauren laughed, but there was no humor in it. With what money? Russell. You know Nathan has been having trouble finding steady work. You know we cannot afford our own place right now. Are you really going to throw us out on the street with a newborn because of some paperwork? It is not just paperwork, and you know it. Evelyn said, her voice was steadier than I had heard it in years. You have been taking over our home piece by piece. I have been making improvements. I have been organizing things that needed organizing. I have been stepping up because nobody else would. Nobody asked you to step up. I said, nobody needed to ask. It was obvious what needed to be done. Nathan looked up from the papers. What needed to be done, Lauren turned to face him fully, and I could see her switching tactics again. This time she chose vulnerability. Nathan, your parents are getting older. They are not as sharp as they used to be. Bills were getting mixed up. Appointments were being missed. Things were falling through the cracks. I was just trying to help keep everything organized. We never missed any bills, Evelyn said firmly. You missed the insurance payment last spring. That was a clerical error at their office. We got it straightened out. And what about the time the water company almost shut off service for non-payment? I stared at her. The water was never shut off. It would have been if I had not called them and straightened things out, Nathan said slowly. Are you saying you have been managing their bills without telling them? She shifted the baby to her other arm, using the movement to avoid answering directly. I have been helping when I noticed things that needed attention, by putting everything in my name, by making sure nothing got missed. Her voice was getting higher, more desperate. The baby started crying again, and Lauren bounced him automatically while continuing to argue. Look, I do not understand why everyone is so upset about this. We are family. We help each other. I saw areas where I could contribute more effectively. So I did. More effectively than the people who own the house, I said. Sometimes. Yes. The admission hung in the air. Lauren realized what she had said and tried to backtrack. But it was too late. I have more time to handle these things. You and Evelyn have other priorities. I was just trying to be useful. Useful or in control? Nathan asked. His question seemed to break something in Lauren. Her careful composure cracked. And for the first time, I saw the real anger underneath. Yes, in control, she snapped. Someone needed to be in control around here because nothing was getting done right. Do you know how frustrating it is to watch things being handled inefficiently when you know you could do it better, so you decided to take over? Evelyn said, I decided to step up and handle things that needed handling without asking permission. Without needing permission. Lauren's voice was full of fury now. I live here. I contribute to this household. I should not need permission to organize our home efficiently. It is not your home, I said firmly. It has been my home for 10 years. I have cleaned every room, organized every closet, managed every system. I know this place better than either of you do at this point. The arrogance in her voice was staggering. She genuinely believed that living in our house for 10 years gave her more claim to it than almost 50 years of ownership. Nathan said, his voice quiet but intense. What exactly were you planning to do with all these bills being in your name? He looked at him like he had asked a stupid question. I was planning to keep the house running smoothly. Someone has to be responsible for these things. But why did it have to be you? Because I am the one who is here all day. I am the one who notices when things need attention. I am the one who has time to handle administrative details. You could have asked us to handle our own bills, Evelyn pointed out. I could have. But why would I when I was already taking care of it? Because it is our house, I said again. Lauren's patience finally snapped completely. Your house that you cannot afford to maintain without our help. Your house that was falling apart before I started organizing it. Your house that Nathan and I have been subsidizing with our presence and our labor for 10 years. Subsidizing. Nathan's voice was incredulous. Yes, subsidizing. Do you think we have been living here for free? Do you think I have not been contributing? I have been managing this household, maintaining these systems, improving this property. That has value. Nathan, that is not ownership, Evelyn said firmly. Is it not? At what point does sweat equity become actual equity? At what point does the person who is actually running the household get a say in how it is run? I felt something cold settle in my stomach. This was not just about bills and mail forwarding. This was about a fundamental belief that her 10 years of living in our house had given her ownership rights. Lauren, I said carefully, do you think you own this house? She looked at me like I was being deliberately dense. I think I have earned a stake in this house. Yes, I have earned a stake in the house where I have lived for 10 years, where I have raised my family, where I have contributed my time and energy and effort to make it a better place. Nathan stared at his wife as if seeing her for the first time. Lauren, this is insane. You cannot just claim ownership of someone else's property because you have been living there. Can I not? What about adverse possession laws? What about tenant rights? What about the fact that I have been the primary person managing this property for years? You are not married to the house, Evelyn said, her voice shaking now. And you are not a tenant. You are a guest who has overstayed. I am a family member who has been contributing to this household while you two have been coasting on ownership rights you established decades ago. The breathtaking entitlement of it left us all speechless for a moment. Lauren seemed to take our silence as agreement. Look, she said, her voice becoming reasonable again. I am not trying to take anything away from anyone. I just think we need to recognize the reality of the situation. This house works because I make it work. These systems function because I maintain them. This family runs smoothly because I organize it. This family, Nathan said slowly, or your family, our family, all of us, including Mom and Dad. Lauren glanced at Evelyn and me, and I saw something cold flicker in her eyes. Of course, including Russell and Evelyn. They are an important part of this household. An important part, I repeated. In our own house, in our family home. Yes. It is not a family home, Nathan said, his voice getting stronger. It is Mom and Dad's home that they have been generous enough to let us live in. For 10 years. Nathan. At some point, generosity becomes partnership. Not without discussion. Not without agreement. Not without consent. Lauren's face was flushed now, her control completely gone. Consent. I have been getting consent for 10 years in the form of you allowing me to handle these responsibilities. You have been perfectly happy to let me manage everything, as long as you did not have to think about it. She turned to face Evelyn and me directly. And you two have been perfectly happy to let me handle all the difficult parts of maintaining this household while you get to play the generous grandparents. We handle our own household, Evelyn said firmly. Really? When was the last time you balanced a checkbook? When was the last time you called a utility company? When was the last time you researched the best internet plan or negotiated a better rate for anything? I realized she was right about some of this. Over the past few years, Lauren had gradually taken over many of these tasks, always presenting it as helpful efficiency rather than a takeover. That does not give you ownership rights, I said. It gives me a voice in decisions that affect my family's living situation. Your family can get your own living situation, Nathan said quietly. Lauren whirled to face him, her eyes blazing. With what money? With your non-existent job? With my non-existent career? Because I have been busy managing this household for 10 years. That was your choice. That was our agreement. You said we would stay here temporarily while we got on our feet. You said your parents wanted to help. You said this was the best thing for our family. I said we would stay temporarily, not permanently. And I never said you should take over their house. I did not take over anything. I stepped up when stepping up was needed. The baby was crying harder now, disturbed by the shouting. Lauren tried to soothe him while continuing to argue, but her multitasking was falling apart under stress. Maybe, Evelyn said quietly. The baby should be somewhere quieter. Lauren clutched our grandson tighter. He's fine where he is. He's upset because we are all shouting. He is upset because his family is being torn apart by selfish people who cannot appreciate what they have. The insult was so casual, so matter-of-fact, that it took a moment to register. Evelyn's face went white. Selfish people, I repeated. Yes, selfish. You have more space than you need, more resources than you use, and a family that has been helping you maintain all of it. And the moment someone asks for basic consideration, you want to throw us out. That is when I knew there was no reasoning with her. In her mind, we were the villains for wanting control of our own home. She genuinely believed she was the victim in a situation where she had been systematically taking over our lives. The question now was what I was going to do about it. After that explosive confrontation in the kitchen, the house felt like a powder keg waiting to explode. Lauren had retreated to the master bedroom with the baby, slamming the door behind her. Nathan had wandered outside to the backyard, looking shell-shocked. Evelyn and I were left standing in our own kitchen, trying to process what had just happened. "Russell," Evelyn said quietly, her voice shaking. "She really thinks she owns our house." I nodded, still staring at the stack of papers in my hands. Not just thinks it. She has been working toward it systematically. What do we do? That was the question that kept me awake all night. What did we do about a woman who had spent 10 years gradually taking control of our home, and now believed she had legal and moral rights to it? What did we do about our son who was clearly trapped between loyalty to his wife and recognition of what she had done to his parents? The next morning I made a decision. While Lauren was busy with the baby and Nathan was still avoiding everyone, I drove downtown to the offices of Brooks and Patterson, the law firm that had handled our estate planning for years. Michael Brooks was a few years younger than me, a sharp man who had been practicing family law for over 35 years. When I explained the situation, his expression grew increasingly serious. "Russell, what you are describing sounds like someone trying to establish adverse possession, or at least strong tenant rights," he said, reviewing copies of the documents I had brought. The utility transfers, the mail forwarding. These are classic steps someone might take to establish legal residence. Can she do that? Can she claim our house in Ohio? It is unlikely she could succeed with a full adverse possession claim because she moved in with your permission. But she could potentially claim tenant rights, which would make removing her much more complicated. My stomach sank. What does that mean? It means that if she has established herself as a tenant, even without a formal lease, you might have to go through formal eviction proceedings to remove her. And if she has put utilities in her name and established mail forwarding, she could argue that she has been acting as the primary resident. We have let them live here rent-free for 10 years because Nathan is our son. I understand that. But the law does not always distinguish between generosity and formal tenancy agreements. If someone has been living somewhere long-term and handling household responsibilities, they can sometimes claim tenant rights. I felt sick. So we are trapped. Not necessarily, but you need to be very careful about how you handle this. If you want them to leave, you should do it properly through legal channels. Michael leaned forward across his desk. Russell, I have to ask, is there any chance your daughter-in-law has been getting legal advice? The steps she has taken are very methodical. They are exactly what someone might do if they were trying to establish a legal claim to residency. The thought had not occurred to me, but it made perfect sense. Lauren's actions had not been random or emotional. They had been calculated and systematic. What should I do first? Document everything. Every bill that has been transferred. Every piece of mail that has been redirected. Every change she has made without permission. Second, I am going to draft a formal notice requiring her to transfer all utilities and mail back to your name within 30 days. Third, we are going to establish clear written expectations for their continued residence in your home. And if she refuses, then we proceed with formal eviction proceedings. It is not pleasant, but it is legal and it is final. I left Michael's office with a thick folder of legal forms and a plan of action. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had some control over the situation. But when I got home, I realized that Lauren had been making plans of her own. Evelyn met me at the door, her face pale with worry. Russell, you need to see something. She led me to our bedroom where she had been going through our personal filing cabinet. Papers were scattered across our bed, and Evelyn's hands were shaking as she held up a document. I was looking for our insurance policies to make sure everything was still in our names, she said, and I found this mixed in with our papers. It was a deed transfer form, blank, but with our property description already filled in. At the bottom in Lauren's handwriting were notes about property values and tax assessments. She has been researching how to transfer ownership of our house, Evelyn whispered. I felt cold rage wash over me. Where did you find this? In our filing cabinet. She must have put it there when she was going through our papers to get information for the utility transfers. I studied the form more carefully. It was not just a casual inquiry. Someone had provided Lauren with specific information about our property, including details that were not publicly available. Evelyn, has anyone else been in our house recently? Any strangers? Any service people that Lauren might have let in? Well, there was someone here last week while you were at your doctor's appointment. Lauren said it was someone from the county assessor's office checking property values for tax purposes. I thought it was routine. My blood ran cold. Did you see their credentials? Lauren handled it. She said she did not want to bother me with official business. I grabbed the phone and called the Franklin County Assessor's office. After being transferred 3 times, I finally reached someone who could check their records. No, sir, the clerk said after a few minutes. We do not have any record of sending someone to your address, and we do not do door-to-door property assessments unless there has been a specific complaint or legal challenge. I hung up and looked at Evelyn. It was not a county assessor. Lauren let someone into our house under false pretenses, and now we have property transfer forms in our filing cabinet. Russell, what is she planning? Before I could answer, we heard the front door open and Nathan's voice calling out, Mom, Dad, where is everyone? I gathered up the papers from our bed and went downstairs. Nathan was in the living room holding his son, looking more serious than I had seen him in years. Dad, we need to talk, he said without preamble. Yes, we do. I sat down across from him, the deed transfer form in my hands. But first, you need to see this. Nathan looked at the form, his expression growing increasingly troubled. Where did this come from? Your mother found it in our filing cabinet along with property value assessments and notes in Lauren's handwriting. Dad, I do not understand. Why would Lauren have this? That is what I was hoping you could tell me. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, bouncing the baby absently. Last week she was asking me questions about inheritance laws. She said she was just curious about how property transfers work when parents get older. What kind of questions? Things like, if someone lives in a house long enough, can they claim ownership? If someone improves a property significantly, do they get rights to it? If elderly people cannot manage their affairs anymore, can family members take over legally? Each question felt like a punch to the gut. And you told her what I told her. I did not know much about it, but that it sounded like she was overthinking things. Nathan looked up at me with worried eyes. Dad, she is not really trying to take your house, is she? I handed him the folder Michael Brooks had given me. Nathan, your wife has spent months transferring our utilities to her name, redirecting our mail, and now researching property transfers. Someone impersonating a county official was in our house last week gathering information. What do you think she is trying to do? Nathan read through the documents, his face growing paler with each page. Oh my God, he whispered finally. She is actually trying to take your house. It looks that way. But that is insane. That is theft. That is fraud. That is what happens when someone feels entitled to something that does not belong to them. Nathan handed the folder back to me and put his face in his hands. Dad, I had no idea. I mean, I knew she was controlling about household things, but I never imagined she would do something like this. Nathan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Are you part of this? Did you know what she was planning? The question hung in the air between us. Nathan's face cycled through hurt, anger, and finally understanding. No, he said firmly. No, I had no idea, and I'm horrified that you even have to ask. I had to ask. I understand why. But Dad, I would never do anything to hurt you and Mom. Never. I studied my son's face, looking for any sign of deception. What I saw was genuine shock and growing anger. What are you going to do? He asked. I am going to stop her. How I told him about my visit to the lawyer, about the formal notices we were preparing, about the legal steps we could take to protect our home and force Lauren to reverse what she had done. Nathan listened quietly, occasionally asking questions, but mostly just absorbing the reality of his situation. When I finished, he was silent for a long time. Nathan, I need you to understand something, I said finally. This is not just about the house. This is about your wife systematically deceiving our family and trying to steal our home. I cannot ignore that. I will not ignore that. I know, he said quietly. And I need you to decide where you stand. Are you with us, or are you with her? Nathan looked down at his son, then back at me. Dad, she is my wife, but what she has done is wrong. It is not just wrong. It is criminal. So what are you going to do? I am going to talk to her. I am going to give her one chance to fix this voluntarily. If she will not, then I will support whatever legal action you need to take. And your marriage, Nathan's voice was sad but determined. My marriage to someone who would steal from my parents. I think that marriage has bigger problems than I realized. That evening, Nathan confronted Lauren. I could hear their voices through the walls, though I could not make out the words. The argument went on for over an hour, with periods of shouting followed by intense, whispered conversations. Finally, Nathan came to find me in the living room. His face was grim, and he was no longer carrying the baby. She admitted it, he said without preamble. All of it. The utilities, the mail, the property research. She has been planning this for over a year. What did she say when you confronted her? She said she was protecting our family's future. She said you and Mom are getting older, and that someone needed to make sure the house stayed in the family when you are gone. She said she was protecting the family by stealing from us. She said she was ensuring that the house would go to people who actually take care of it instead of being sold to strangers. The twisted logic was almost breathtaking. And what did you tell her? I told her that what she was doing was theft and fraud. I told her that if she did not fix everything immediately, I would support you in having her arrested. How did she react to that? Nathan's face was hard with anger. She told me that if I sided with you against her, she would make sure I never saw my son again. That threat changed everything. This was not just about property fraud anymore. This was about a woman who was willing to use her own child as a weapon to get what she wanted. Nathan, I said carefully, what do you want to do? He looked at me with eyes that reminded me of the little boy I had raised. The one who always tried to do the right thing even when it was hard. I want to do whatever it takes to stop her. He said, even if it means losing my marriage, I will not let her steal from you, and I will not let her use my son as blackmail. The next morning, I called Michael Brooks and told him we were ready to proceed with formal legal action. The time for family discussions and attempted compromises was over. Lauren had made her choice. Now it was time for her to face the consequences. The formal legal notice was served to Lauren on a Monday morning. I watched through our living room windows as the process server approached our front door, official documents in hand. Evelyn stood beside me, her fingers intertwined with mine. Both of us knew that this moment would change everything. Lauren answered the door with the baby in her arms, probably expecting a delivery or a neighbor. When she realized what was happening, her face went through a range of emotions I will never forget. Confusion, then recognition, then pure rage. She slammed the door so hard that the baby started crying. The legal notice was comprehensive. It required Lauren to transfer all utilities back to our names within 7 days, cancel the mail forwarding immediately, and cease any and all activities related to establishing residency or ownership claims on our property. It also informed her that she had 30 days to vacate the premises voluntarily, or formal eviction proceedings would begin. But the most important part was what Michael Brooks had added at my request. A formal complaint was being filed with the district attorney's office regarding identity theft, mail fraud, and attempted property fraud. Within an hour of being served, Lauren was in our living room, her face flushed with fury, demanding to speak with Nathan and me. Evelyn had wisely taken herself to visit her sister for the day, not wanting to be present for what was sure to be an ugly confrontation. "You cannot do this to me," she screamed, waving the legal papers in the air. "I have rights. I have been living here for 10 years. You have the right to leave voluntarily." I said calmly, "That is about it. Nathan, tell your father he is making a mistake. Tell him what this will do to our family." Nathan, to his credit, had clearly spent the past few days thinking about his priorities. "Lauren, what you have done is illegal. Dad is being more than fair by giving you a chance to fix it voluntarily. Fix what I have not done anything wrong. You have committed identity theft by putting their bills in your name," Nathan said, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "You have committed mail fraud by redirecting their mail. You have attempted property fraud by researching ways to transfer their house to your name. These are felonies. Lauren, I was trying to help this family by stealing from my parents, by taking responsibility when no one else would. I had heard enough. Lauren, You have 7 days to transfer everything back to our names. You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. Those are your options. And if I refuse, then you will be evicted, and the criminal charges will proceed." She stared at me with undisguised hatred. "You would really do that? You would really destroy your son's marriage and take away your grandson over some paperwork? I would really protect my home and my wife from someone who has been systematically trying to steal from us?" "Yes. Nathan." She turned to her husband desperately. "You cannot let them do this to us." Nathan looked at his wife with an expression I can only describe as profound sadness. "Lauren, they are not doing anything to us. You did this to us. I did this for us. No, you did this for you. And now our son is going to grow up with a mother who tried to steal from his grandparents." That seemed to break something in Lauren. She sank into our couch, still holding the baby, and for the first time since I had known her, she looked genuinely defeated. "I just wanted security," she said quietly. "I wanted to make sure our family had a stable home." "You already had that," Nathan said. "My parents gave us that freely. For how long? What happens when they die? What happens when this house gets sold and we have nowhere to go? Then we figure it out like adults. Lauren, we do not steal from the people who have been helping us." She looked between Nathan and me, and I could see her calculating one last desperate move. "Fine," she said, standing up abruptly. "Fine. You want me gone, I will go. But I am taking my son with me, and you will never see him again." Nathan's face went white. "Lauren, do not do this. What protect my child from people who would destroy his family over money?" "It is not about money. It is all about money," she screamed. "It is about a house and bills and property values. You are choosing money over your own grandchild." I felt something snap inside me. 10 years of watching this woman manipulate my family. 10 years of seeing my wife become smaller and quieter. 10 years of my son making excuses for increasingly unacceptable behavior. And now she was going to use our grandson as her final weapon. "No," I said, my voice deadly calm. "We are choosing honesty over theft. We are choosing respect over manipulation. We are choosing family over fraud. Nathan is my family. Nathan is our son. That baby is our grandson. You are the woman who tried to steal our home." Lauren clutched the baby tighter, her eyes wild. "You will never see him again. I will make sure of it." That is when Nathan finally found his backbone completely. "Actually, Lauren, you will not." His voice was calm but absolute. "Because I am filing for divorce and I am requesting full custody." The silence that followed was deafening. Lauren stared at her husband, as if he had just spoken in a foreign language. "You cannot," she whispered. "I can. And I am. A mother who commits felony fraud against her own child's grandparents is not someone who should have unsupervised custody of that child. Nathan, you cannot do this to me. You cannot take my baby away. I am not taking him away. I am protecting him from a mother who thinks theft and fraud are acceptable ways to provide for her family." Lauren's face crumpled, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Please," she begged. "Please do not do this. I will fix everything. I will transfer the bills back. I will cancel the mail forwarding. I will move out. Just do not take my baby." "You should have thought about that before you decided to commit crimes," Nathan said firmly. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal activity. True to her word, Lauren did transfer all the utilities back to our names. The mail forwarding was canceled. She moved out of our house and into a cheap apartment on the east side of Columbus, taking only her personal belongings. But the criminal charges proceeded anyway. Michael Brooks had advised us that letting the legal process continue was the only way to ensure that Lauren could not try this again with someone else. The divorce proceedings were swift and decisive. When the judge heard about Lauren's attempted property fraud, along with her threat to use the child as a weapon against his grandparents, custody was awarded to Nathan with supervised visitation for Lauren. 8 months later, I was sitting in our backyard watching Nathan push his son on the swing set we had installed. Evelyn was in her garden humming while she tended to her roses. The house felt like our home again for the first time in years. Lauren had been sentenced to 2 years probation and community service for the fraud charges. She was required to pay restitution for all the legal fees and costs associated with fixing what she had done. She saw her son every other weekend under court supervision and was forbidden from bringing him to our house during those visits. Nathan had moved back in with us temporarily while he saved money for his own place. But this time it was different. He paid rent. He helped with household expenses. And most importantly, he treated Evelyn and me like the homeowners we were, not like elderly relatives who needed managing. "Dad," Nathan said one evening as we sat on the porch watching his son play in the yard, "I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For letting it go on so long. For not seeing what she was doing. For not protecting you and Mom when I should have." I looked at my son, this man who had found his strength when it mattered most. "Nathan, you did protect us when it counted. When the choice was clear, you chose what was right. It should not have taken so long. Maybe not, but you got there." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Evelyn teach her grandson how to identify different flowers in her garden. The little boy was fascinated by everything she showed him, his face bright with curiosity and joy. She praised his gentleness with the flowers and helped him water them carefully. "She really thought she could take our house," I said after a while. "She really thought she deserved it," Nathan corrected. That was the scariest part. She genuinely believed that living here for 10 years gave her more rights than almost 50 years of ownership. I nodded. People can convince themselves of anything if it serves their purposes. The thing is, if she had just been grateful, if she had just been respectful, you and Mom would have probably helped us forever. He was right. If Lauren had treated Evelyn with kindness, if she had contributed to our household instead of trying to control it, if she had asked for help instead of trying to steal what she wanted, we would have been happy to support our son's family indefinitely. But she could not do that. She needed to be in control. I said, she needed to own things instead of just enjoying them. And now she has lost everything. I watched my grandson run across the yard to show Evelyn a butterfly he had found, his face glowing with excitement. She praised his gentleness with the creature and helped him release it back into her flower bed. "Not everything," I said. "She still gets to see him. She still gets to be his mother, even if it is not the way she planned. Do you think she will ever understand what she did wrong?" I considered the question. I think she will understand that she lost. I do not know if she will ever understand why. 4 years later, Nathan bought a house 6 blocks away from us in Bexley. It is close enough that we can walk over for dinner, close enough that our grandson can ride his bicycle to our house after school, close enough that Evelyn can babysit whenever Nathan needs her to. Lauren remarried last year to a man who already owned his own home. She still sees our grandson every other weekend. And according to Nathan, she seems happier now that she has her own domain to control. Evelyn and I renewed our wills recently. leaving everything to Nathan and establishing a trust fund for our grandson's education. The house that Lauren tried so hard to steal will stay in our family after all. But it will pass through love and generosity, not theft and fraud. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I had not found those papers in the basement. If I had not overheard that phone conversation. If I had just continued to ignore the small signs that something was wrong. Lauren might have succeeded. She might have gradually taken over our home so completely that by the time we realized what was happening, it would have been too late to stop her. But I did find those papers. I did overhear that conversation. And when the moment came to choose between keeping the peace and protecting our family, I chose protection. Evelyn is happy again. She sings while she cooks. She tends her garden with joy. She plays with her grandson without fear of being criticized or corrected. Our home feels like our home again. And our grandson is learning that love does not come with strings attached, that generosity does not require gratitude, but that respect is non-negotiable, even within families, especially within families. The 3 words I said to Nathan that day in the kitchen, when I called him over and showed him those papers, were simple: this stops now. Sometimes that is all it takes to change everything. What about you? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family to protect your peace, or watched someone mistake kindness for weakness? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. Ask me anything. I'll answer as many questions as I can. Like this video, subscribe, and tap the bell so we can keep talking. For the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for being here with me today.